I guess it's time to move on to anime. As usual, we'll start in the same order that they came out in. Now, I believe both One Piece and SAO2 come out on Saturdays nights.
Yeah,
I think.
they do.
So, and since there's more to talk, gonna do One Piece first, then SAO2. But first, we're gonna start off with Naruto. Now, the episode 379, entitled "An Opening." All right. Minato prepares to teleport Naruto and Sasuke away from him when Tobiramo uses a shadow clone to take the detonating attack, Obito's attack, and take it back to Obito, who unfortunately shields himself from the explosion. Now the allied ninjas are just outright intimidated by seeing this battle, basically battle of gods between Madara and Hashirama. But then Shikamaru does his thing, and everyone gets, motivated again. Now, after readjusting the plan of attack, Naruto and Sasuke combine their techniques to create an opening, but Tobirama and Minato strategically use their flying Raijin technique, I think it's called, pronounced, so that they Scorch-style Nimbus Tempest instead hits Obito, as opposed, unblocked. Now, but unfortunately, Obito emerges from the flames unscathed, and it is revealed that the truth-seeking balls contain yin-yang chakra that negates regenerative abilities of the reanimated ninja, which is why Minato's arm is still gone. This becomes worse when Naruto's nine-tailed chakra mode runs out while Gamachi makes an attack on Obito with some sort of starch syrup gun thingy before his the summoning jutsu expires. Now, from there, Obito just basically berates the title of the Hokage, but noticing what Gamakichi's attack did to Obito's Barreter, while angered by Obito's words, Naruto, with the help of Tobirama, successfully lands a Sage mode Rasengan on Obito's back. Now, Minato, this is very effective, and Minato is just amazed at how Naruto became a sage like Jiraiya before being suddenly contacted by his Kurama, who reminds him that Naruto did manage to befriend the other half, so it shouldn't be a surprise that he's this strong. And that's pretty much the episode. It was okay. I have to say it's a pretty decent episode, because a lot of nice techniques and but it wasn't. But then again, at the same time, it wasn't too special. So, the only other thing I'd have to say is that just looking for, as a reader of the manga, I'm looking forward to see how certain things in the future get animated. So next, I'll be moving on to Fairy Tail. Now, this episode 201, A Gift, is what I would like to call a sandwich episode. And I'm pretty sure Strider knows what it is, but for people who don't know, might not know the term, because I don't think it's even a term, I probably just made it up, is that it's one of those episodes where it puts canon at the beginning, canon at the end, and puts filler in between to make an entire episode. Because the beginning, the fairy tale arrives to Magnolia, the whole town celebrating, yeah, 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 and as a reward for winning the tournament, the mayor gives the guild back their guild hall as a gift. Now, this is when the filler part comes in. Afterwards, Lucy and her friends accept a job to save a village that has been flooded with mud due to a mole, which is kind of where it gets weird, because this mole looks more like a giant mud skipper which I don't even know what the hell. It just looks like a weird fish, giant fish thing that can walk on land for some reason. Now, learning from the villagers that the monster is looking for a mate, they dress up Lucy in a wedding gown and try to use her as bait to capture it. After which, she summons Virgo to try and help, and in the end, she finds a female mole, which just looks like a giant crayfish with boobs on it, which is weird, to mate with the mole, so that way it'll just leave everyone alone. Now, at the end, this is where we go back to the canon stuff, where it's set, and Mavis meets up with Zareth, and despite the fact that Zareth clearly states he can't see or hear her, he has a conversation with her and basically says that, you know what, I'm tired of waiting for me to be taken out by somebody. I'm just going to obliterate mankind and we'll start over again. So, it was a very simple episode. I mean, since it was the majority focused on filler, and it wasn't even really good filler, there wasn't really anything funny about it, so, I mean, honestly, I'm going to say it was an so-so episode. You know, and based on the name of the next episode, it seems like they're going to go into those, like, filler that Fairy Tail does, where it's like a couple of episodes where each episode is its own filler story as opposed to like a small filler arc, which I'm going to hate. Now, so next week's probably not going to be a good episode. Now, moving on to the really good stuff of the week. One Piece. Episode 663. Luffy astonished. The man who will inherit Ace's will. This is already, I'm telling you, and it's an amazing episode despite its many flaws. Because, alright, now the episode begins with Dillinger continuing his attack upon Bellamy. Now, they added some. Now, in the manga, it was just like, okay, you barely see him get beat up, but it's shown that he was beaten up a lot. In this, they added more to the beatdown to make it seem more like, you know, to make it have a bigger impact. Then Bartolomeo comes in and saves the day. You know, basically saying, you know, we fought on the battlefield, but now that we're off the battlefield, we're kind of like war brothers, so I'm not going to let you be killed. And Dillinger is pissed the fuck off, but can't get past Bartolomeo's barrier. And then gets called by Diamante to go join the others to guard the toy house. And he reluctantly leaves. Then the toy soldier explains Operation SOP and how they have to go to the underground trade port where Sugar is, who is the one making people in the toys, and basically knock her out. Not necessarily kill her or hurt her, just knock her out. And of course, Usopp does his thing where, oh my god, since we're just fighting a weak little girl, I have courage. And then Frankie changes his hair into looks like a cannon hairstyle, which is weird. But now this is where the things get first half was okay to maybe a good, but the reason why I give the second half is why I give it amazing.
Oh yeah.
And you know why. Luffy then, as going through looking for the Coliseum's exit, runs into Bartolomeo and Bellamy. Now, of course, Bartolomeo immediately is like, "Oh my God, Luffy senpai," and like can no longer help Bellamy move because he's so like he still gets starstruck to the point where he can't move, and like is just like crying like Luffy senpai, which is hilarious.
Right.
And then of course Luffy's like, Bellamy, you're a member of Doflamingo's crew. You should be able to tell me how to get out of here. And like, no, I don't know how. And even if I did, I still won't betray him. I'm like, and that's of course where like everyone's like, come on, really? if you continue down this road, you might end up becoming the next Sakura. But please don't. But anyway, now Luffy's talking about how, okay, I gotta go save Law, but what about the devil, Ace's devil fruit? Well, Bartolomeo's like, don't worry, I got you, bro. My plan the entire time was to win if I won, to give you the devil fruit, so I'll get it for you. And then he's like, cool. And then there's a step. Oh yes, a mighty step indeed.
I will not let you have the Mara no
Me, Straw Hat Luffy. Now, before I continue this, I'm gonna give you the most funniest quote I've probably of the year from one of the guys I go to for reviews, and that is for Neverworld. Now, he basically outright said, and both him and King of Lightning basically said in their reviews that, okay, they mentioned it's the guy Sabo. At this point, you should know it's Sabo.
Yeah.
So, there's no denying it. Now, for Neverworld said something that was hilarious, and I just really felt the need to remember it so I can tell you. If you don't think it's Sabo, listen. If it smells like a duck, if it looks like a duck, it's Sabo. I was like, what? And I just had to say it again in my head. I'm like, if it smells like a duck, if it looks like a duck, it's Sabo. But anyway, so Sabo comes in, and not only is he just, badass with, even with just talking just a little bit. And of course, there was a collective sigh because for some odd reason that they were going to use Naruto's Japanese voice actor for Sabo. I don't know why, but apparently they did, and thankfully they didn't.
Yeah, thank God.
So it was awesome. I'm assuming you watched this episode.
I did.
Yes, and if you couldn't already tell, it's rare for him because he doesn't, he has enough on his plate as it is, so he doesn't usually watch the weekly episodes of One Piece.
Right.
But anyway, so then Sabo's like, okay, I'm going to retrieve the Flame Fruit. Now, Luffy gives his disguise to Sabo, so that way he can fight in his place as Lucy. And then Akame leads Luffy to apparently, and then next thing you know, boom, they're out of the Coliseum, and him, Kinemon, and Zoro are in disguise, which makes the Marines think that they're toys, and they head to the flower field. Now, there's that whole funny moment where you see the return of Koala.
Yeah.
And she basically says over the Den Mushi to Sabo, it's like, oh, Robin's here, I haven't seen her in a while, let's talk to her. Which makes everyone hate Robin more because then that makes it even more confirmed that Robin knew shit that she should have told Luffy, and she didn't.
Right.
Then she's talks about it's there's no one knows if there would have been a difference, if you would have made a difference if you would have been there, in reference, of course, referencing the war, the Whitebeard War.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, they ended it off just like they ended off the chapter. You see Whitebeard in Ace's grave with the 3 sake cups. And it was just, woo! Awesome.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if you didn't realize, it's just amazing. Now, unfortunately, sorry, but that's kind of all you see of him for another 2 months. In terms of the chapters, you don't see him for I think it took us 2 or 3 months before we saw another chapter with Sabo in it, even as Lucy.
Right.
Because they still took their time finishing up D Block before they actually got to the finale when Sabo came in as Lucy. So that was kind of pissed off. And it took us till maybe May or June. I don't know, I forget. When did they finally show his face? In May? I think it was. I forget. But it was a great episode. Yeah. So, which could translate to 25 episodes or more. But the good news is to get perspective, this episode premiered on the last Saturday in September of 2014, And I believe the chapter in question that this episode is based on was, oh yeah, it was like somewhere around like mid to late December.
Okay.
I think that's what I believe it was. So since it's been almost, we're like what, 3? I think it premiered maybe a little less than 3 months, 2 or 3 months shy of the chapter it was based on. We're still pretty good. I mean, since that means there's still a lot of shit that they can still do, a lot of chapters they can do.
Mhm.
So like what, I think this chapter in question was what, like 20 something or 730. I don't know. I can't remember.
731, I think it was.
730. Yeah, 731 was the chapter that this was based off of, and the current chapter that was released or is 761.
Mhm.
So that's 30, which doesn't seem like a lot for nearly a year. But Oda's taken periodic breaks, so.
Right.
But 30 chapters of content will take them a lot more time, so, most likely that'll probably be sometime like I'd say early midsummer by the time they get to where they are now and the manga when that gets animated.
Right.
It'll probably be sometime around then. But by then, hopefully, we'll be out of Dressrosa in the manga. And I know no one wants to hear this, but honestly, I would rather them, after Dressrosa is done in the manga and they get to it in the anime, that they go into a filler arc, not like a friggin' 2 or 3 episode filler arc, like maybe like a 10 episode filler arc, which I know seems kind of ridiculous because no one wants to see it, but honestly, it needs to happen to give us some more distance, like, because the slow pacing is just destroying people. And as manga readers, we know that that the manga itself is being in those 30 chapters between this chapter, this episode's and then the episode that there's just so much. It just doesn't. It feels so slow paced, even in the manga. So when you take how Oda kind of really slow paced it in the manga, and the fact that they're going to slow it down even more for the anime, it just really is going to make it seem a lot worse. So now, but in terms of the episode, yeah, it was an amazing.
Yeah.
Because of Sabo.
Of course.
I'm being biased, Sabo. Now, before we move on, I would like to talk about today, September 30th, Funimation released not one, but 2 One Piece DVD sets, if you want to call it. The first was Funimation's Season 6 Voyage 1, which begins Thriller Bark, in English dubbed. Now, Thriller Bark was one of those arcs that was kind of, how do you say, really slow, and is considered a low point by a lot of people.
Including me.
It is still nice to finally get to see it English dubbed, or at least beginning to be English dubbed.
Yeah.
The the voices that they've done, they're still doing a very good job. It's just that a lot of being in One Piece and the fact that there's been so many characters that they've needed to voice, there's like really, I feel at least starting to dip into their like lesser known actors and actresses that are still very good for the roles that they've been cast. It's not like I'm saying that they're less quality. It's just that they are not as known as like the Funimation regulars.
Right.
Now the oddest one of them all in terms of the new voices is the guy they got playing Gecko Moria. Now I've never heard of this guy. First of all, he doesn't have a Wikipedia page or any other page, as far as I know, anywhere, and yet he sounds like when he's doing Gecko Moria, he sounds so much like he sound almost at times sounds like Vic. Which
Really?
is why when I first heard Gecko Moria, I thought Vic was playing him, but it isn't.
What's his name?
I can't remember.
I'll look it
I'd
up.
have to. Yeah, you can look it up. But the point is that it's odd because, it almost further proves my point in the fact that because I originally thought, I believe I said that to you, Strider, that I felt that Vic would probably be a good Gecko Moria, but they didn't pick him, which I'm almost kind of glad. I'm pretty much sort of glad because then that gives Vic an opportunity to play another character that might actually be of some importance.
Right.
As opposed to being a one random filler character, which I really hope he gets picked to do another role.
Yeah.
Because out of all the Funimation regulars they've put in this series so far, the one I've been looking forward to the most is Vic getting an important role.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see who they have him cast as, because with the amount of characters in One Piece and how long it's going to go on, Vic isn't just going to is going to be back for more.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And even some of the people who've already voiced semi-important characters, and when I mean by semi-important, I mean characters that might have been important for one particular arc but are no longer important. They're gonna come back for some other roles. Like, for instance, another Funimation regular that I think is probably going to get cast for another role, Todd Haberkorn.
Yeah.
He was important in Alabasta, but now he doesn't have any characters. So I think he's going to get cast as somebody else. Maybe not necessarily somebody who's going to be very important for more than one arc, but he's definitely going to get cast again as something. And this case is even brought so even more when you think about the other Funimation release for One Piece today, which was Film Z, which was so good, made better because now I got to finally see it in English dub. The voices were great, and it was I love being able to hear them do, because there was some for instance, obviously you got to showcase them voice that they gained from being from their training that we're not going to get to see for a while because we still got a lot of content to cover in English dub before we get the post time skip. Like, for instance, you got Skywalk, which is, and yes, we all know it's the same. It's Moonwalk from CP9, but Sanji calls it Skywalk, so screw it. And then you got things like the word hockey is never used. Like, the only time hockey is no one actually declares that they're hardening up their arm in hockey, even Luffy. And the only time someone even mentions it or in terms of hockey, is when Luffy utilizes his Conqueror's Haki, but they call it Conqueror's Spirit, which I hope Funimation doesn't replace the word hockey for spirit, because it doesn't sound right.
I'm pretty
sure I can understand.
Pretty sure they're using hockey. I'm pretty sure they've already stated that, but that's weird that they said spirit though.
But it was some I guess for that one term instance for Conqueror's Haki, I guess it's okay. I mean, because it wasn't like an important person; it was like a random Marine who said it. This is Conqueror's Spirit.
Oh.
So but it's just the fact that the only time someone named a form of hockey, they used spirit instead of hockey, which disappointed me because I swore Luffy in the final battle against the villain he said Armament Hockey Hardening, but nope, he just gears up, blackens his arms, and doesn't say anything about hockey. Which disappointed me because they have yet to English dub anything they haven't English dubbed the word hockey yet.
Right.
Which pisses me. I was hoping to see. Now, in looking at the various voice actors, to find out the various names, the people who are doing these new characters, I actually found a couple of interesting things, but I'm going to talk about that briefly after I'm finished about One Piece. Now, One Piece Film Z, the only two characters that were new in terms of they're in the anime and not just exclusive to the movie, is Akainu and Kizaru. The voice actors for both, I felt, did a good job, but also at the same time, I want to be able to. I can't wait for them to appear in the anime because so I can hear those voices more. And so, but now Kizaru's voice actor, don't recognize his name whatsoever or the voice, but the voice somewhat sounds familiar, but I've never heard of the voice actor. And once again, there's no information on him on the internet as far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
But Akainu, for those of you who keep up with the English dubbed One Piece episodes, the voice actor who plays him was previously used to voice Mr. 5 from Baroque Works, which I thought was interesting. I mean, it's been so long since I've heard Mr. 5's voice, I can't even remember what he sounds like, but he does a good job, I feel, for Akainu. But other than that, there really isn't too much in terms of new voices. Obviously, the movie exclusive characters have their own voices that are interesting, but so now there are some other interesting things that I got, you got to see on the in terms of like through like special features and whatnot. Like there was I think it was on the second disc of Voyage 1, they had a sort of like quick, like, I don't know, like 30-minute like behind the scenes like thing with Mike McFarland and that's right. That's how his name's pronounced, right? Mike McFarland.
Mm-hmm.
And about recording with Stephanie Young.
Nice.
And the other guy, the engineer on the guy that helped, I forget what the guy's name is, but apparently he's the voice of Marco, the Phoenix.
Okay.
The second guy to voice him, because this is where things got interesting, because apparently, I believe it says that Marco the Phoenix's first appearance was in episode 151, mm-hmm. which I believe is when Shanks sent the messenger to Whitebeard to meet up, and somebody else, and then this guy, they cast someone to voice Marco in that scene, but then in the second meeting when Shanks actually shows up to Whitebeard, they picked a new guy, and this new guy is apparently an engineer, I guess, whatever they call him, engineer working with Mike McFarlane on the One Piece English dubbed.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty I thought that was pretty interesting. But the other thing that I found out when I was looking up about voices was apparently, and I didn't even realize this, they already voice cast Rayleigh.
Oh, did they?
Because he already appeared, apparently. And that's what threw me off. Apparently he was in Buggy's flashback, all the way back, way back.
Mm-hmm.
The random ass guy, or at least the member of the crew, of Buggy's crew that talked to him, and basically who at first glance apparently is like the most random ass guy, was actually Silver's Rayleigh.
Yep. I'm looking at the picture right now. That's him. Hell.
Yeah, I've seen that episode at least like 3 times, and not once did I think that was him.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the first time I didn't even know he existed, but the second and third time I saw it, I'm surprised I didn't pick it up. But apparently that's him, and they've had someone voice him for that episode because he had lines.
Uh-huh.
Now, whether that guy, they choose to have that guy play Rayleigh now, when he appears later on in the anime, who knows?
Hmm.
So, anyway, but yeah, I really enjoyed both releases. Film Z more than the Thriller Bark stuff because it was kind of, I mean, the Thriller Bark for me was more about, at least at this part of Thriller Bark, it was more, the best parts of it was more so the good voice acting and the laughs,
Uh-huh.
because there was a lot of laughs in this arc as a whole,
Hmm.
especially since now we got Brooke in the anime instead of just the movies.
Uh-huh.
So now I think that's just about it in terms of One Piece for this week. Time to move on to Sword Art Online. Yes, people, you heard me right. Since last week, not only did I start watching Sword Art Online, I finished it and then caught up with Sword Art Online 2.
Right. So what's going to happen, guys, is we're going to start with my personal review that I've already, pre-recorded, and then we'll hear Don's thoughts on the overall series, and then we're going to hear his thoughts on this particular episode. All right, Sword Art Online 2, episode 13. Asada-san, 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 Asada-san. Yeah, that's right. So, so, so the episode continues off with the fight between Desugan and Kirito, and ultimately, it seems like Kirito is doing better than he was. Like initially, it looked like he was getting his ass whooped in the last episode, but now he's like starting to keep pace until Shinon finally helps and delivers what is known as a phantom bullet, which is, just a fake, like a fake out, really. And Kirito is able to bisect Sturban or Death's gun. And so, yeah, that's that part. And then a really interesting and kind of amusing ending to the BOB where Shinon, you know, gives him the grenade and then holds him so he won't be able to escape. Hugs him, and they both explode and become the co-champs of the tournament. I thought that was kind of amusing. I saw like in the Crunchyroll section or the comment section where people were commenting on that as well. So then, you know, Asada, otherwise known as Shinon, she wakes up and she kind of searches around the house for any trace of, the other death gun, and she can't find anything, thankfully for her. But in comes Shinkawa, and he has something in his little, looks like a Chinese like food container almost, but it's, as we know from watching the episode, it's a fucking uh, like a high tech syringe thing. And so, he gets all weird on her. He's like, you know, you told me to wait, so I waited, and now you better, love me. And she gets weirded out by him, obviously, and then, he goes full retard by showing the syringe, and then, the whole sexual harassment thing, and so she thinks she's gonna die, and she's ready to give up, but then her GGO self sort of comes into play where her personality from GGO, I almost want to say like an MPO type of thing, like multiple personality or yeah, disorder, but it could just be one facet of her emotions that are coming into play, saying let's fucking fight. and so she does, and she is able to beat the shit out of him initially, but then she tries to run away, which to me makes no sense because you got this guy on the ground, you fucking beat the shit out of him, She had him, and then she kind of just ran away to try to get away. In my opinion, she should have stayed there and beat the shit out of him with whatever the closest blunt or sharp object she could find while he was still on the ground, But she runs and he chases. He has time to get up and chase, and then, he goes full rapist mode until our shining hero, Kirito, comes in and gives him a knee right to the face. Like Captain Falcon's knee of justice. Right to his fucking face. And then now it looks like he's beating the crap out of him, and he tells Shinon to run. Again, why would she run if it's 2-on-1? They could literally just beat the living shit out of this guy and be done with it. I don't understand this move. She shouldn't run. The two of them should literally gang up on this guy, just like they did in GGO, and just maul this guy half to death. I mean, if you think about it, the evidence all leads back to this guy as one of the death gun people. So there's no reason at all to just run or do anything like that. So anyway, that's the episode. I thought it was a good episode. It was definitely interesting. I laughed my ass off at the whole Asasan part and him going nuts and his fucking weird ass rapist faces. It was just funny to me. Not that rape is funny in any way, but just his face and just how they animated the whole thing was just so fucking weird.
Alright, so now that you've all heard his thoughts about this week's episode, let me just give you a brief rundown of what I thought about the first series. Now, the reason why I decided to watch this was for multiple reasons. One of the reasons, of course, being it was on Netflix, so it's much easier to watch when it's on Netflix. But the second reason was because of the whole idea that it was, I already knew prior that it was about, an online virtual game that they get stuck in. So I figured, that could be interesting, especially since it was based off, fantasy games. So I figured, alright, why not? Now, in the first episode, when you find out that they get trapped by this guy who's like, alright, yeah, you're all trapped in here. You can't log out, and if someone tries to take off the helmet, the nerve gear will use microwaves to fry your brain, effectively killing you, which is fucked up as it is. But then he says if you die in the game, it'll destroy your brain, effectively destroying both you in the game and outside of the game. So right off the bat, it was just like, shit, this shit just got real, and it's only the first episode. And it was like, this is going to be awesome. Now, obviously at this point, going into it, I already knew that it was 26 episodes was the first series. And then I got confused when the guy was like, yeah, in order to beat the game, you got to get through all 100 floors and beat the boss on the final floor. And I'm like, wait, there are 100 floors and they cover it all in 26 episodes? But then I already knew that there was a Sword Art Online 2, so I thought initially after the first episode that, maybe Sword Art Online 2, they're still trying to clear all 100 levels. Boy, was I wrong. I was definitely wrong.
Yeah, how choppy was the first 13 episodes? My goodness. Oh
my god, I was so confused. For the first half of the series, of the first Sword Art Online series, that was all the entirety of the run of SAO. So not only that was that confusing, was the fact that they spent the majority of time skipping around, in terms of the floors the max floor they reached and the levels they were at. It was just in that aspect, it was just so confusing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they were skipping days and months were going by, and I'm like, what the? I was just... Now, the second half of the Sword Art Online part of Sword Art Online got a little less choppy, but at the same time, that's when that whole relationship with Asuna started, which was interesting, at least, Now, I was kind of sort of pre-watching this spoiled by his friend saying that this was supposedly an incest anime and that there was a point where Kirito and his cousin were there was feelings between them. So at this point I'm thinking, wait, hold on. At this point I thought there was Asuna. So I'm like, wait a minute. How did they not recognize each other? Because their avatars were changed to look exactly like they look like in real life. So I'm like, how the hell did they not recognize each other? If they're cousins and they grew up, and I'm like, wait, what the hell? Now, of course, that was because I didn't get to the second half of Sword Art Online 1. But I'll get to that. Now, in terms of the first part, I liked it. Yes, it was very choppy, but it was still I still felt it was very entertaining. Because of, because I like RP, I don't play a lot of MMOs because I feel like I'm too lazy to be able to put in enough work to do much. But the whole idea of the genre interests me, and yeah, I really liked the way Kirito fought, especially when he revealed that he could dual wield swords.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was awesome. Because he was just destroying people left and right with that shit. Now, it was good, and then, at least for the and then when we got to the end of part of SAO, which is also a very confusing fact, but that's besides the point, it was that ending of the SAO part. It was just like, what? Are you kidding me? You don't remember why you created a death game? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? That you went through all this. Friggin' Kirito got married to Asuna and adopted a program as their daughter, for goodness sakes. And they were in there for over 2 years, and you can't even fucking remember why you did this? Now, in the episodes before we started Alfenheim Online, I thought was interesting because I like the whole fact that, him struggling to adjust to living back in the real world again. I thought that was pretty interesting. Because it was inevitable. When he tries to spar with his cousin, and at the end of he fights with the sword one-handed, and then he tries to put the sword back on his back like he was still in the game. Just to showcase how it became a habit, that was his life for 2 years. Now, another thing that I forgot to mention about is that, when we were getting close to the end of the Sword Art Online part of Sword Art Online, I would remember this. I think I started this one particular episode, and then I had to, do something, so I had to stop the episode, and then couldn't come back to it for a couple hours. And in between this time, I was thinking to myself, you know what? The one thing I realized that they have not covered yet is what the hell is going on with their bodies. How the hell are their bodies surviving without being able to eat or drink or sleep or whatever properly? Right. And literally, when I came back to finish the episode, Asuna brings it up. Hey, you remember all that time after we started this game when people were acting all weird, when they were probably moving our bodies to hospitals to keep us alive while we were trying to finish this game? And I'm like, really? Now, in terms of the Sword Art Online part of Sword Art Online, honestly, before I even go any further, honestly, yes, I know that each of these new MMOs that they're doing is basically another arc in the story, and that SAO is just really covers all these MMOs and not just SAO. But honestly, SAO could easily have been a long anime.
Yeah.
Even with all this stuff, and the fact that there's another MMO they do after Gun Gale Online, they could have done it easily 250 episodes.
Yeah, definitely.
With all this stuff. With Sword Online, part of Sword Online itself being between 100 and 150 episodes. Because They could have shown them going through each, maybe not necessarily that, like, but they could have easily stretched it out more because it's a fantasy online game. It's not that hard to come up with fantasy bosses that they have to beat, which was I thought was an issue because I'm like, okay, so they have to once they get to a floor, they gotta go through the various dungeons on the floor to find the boss room where the boss remains there, doesn't leave, and that's the only way you can fight him. Like, I mean, that aspect I thought was kind of stupid because it's like, okay, so there's no chance the boss could escape and try to fight them elsewhere, causing there to be actually like an antagonist of sort. Because the main antagonist of the Sword Online part was the creator of the game, so it's like wasn't really much. Now, of course, there was a lot of other messed up things about that, and the fact that there was murder guilds, which I thought was pretty messed up. But I guess should have guessed that there was going to be people there who killed for the sake of killing because they knew that, even though they knew that they were actually killing the people, because it's a fucked up world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said, that they could have easily stretched that out for a while in terms of episodes, and they could have made Sword Online easily a long anime, and just with the Sword Online part.
Right.
Now, the whole thing with Alfenheim Online. Now, yes, I understand that the pacing was fast because, they only had, a week? By the time he started the game, he had a week to save Asuna. But seriously, the pacing was so fast. I was like, even faster than the first part.
Yeah, it just wasn't choppy. It was just fast.
It was just like, and I think I kind of sort of agree with the fact that, in this one, more so noticeable than in the other games, MMOs he's played, including Gun Gale Online, in the fact that in the first episode that he starts it, he masters flying to the point where he doesn't need the controller and he's just already good at the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, really? And that was one of the, again, falls under the whole pacing issue. They could have, even Alfenheim Online could have been like 35, 40 episodes if they pasted it out right.
Uh-huh.
And added in extra content, which would have allowed time for Kirito to be fooling around trying to learn how to play the game, instead of rushing him to being the strongest in the game, like in this matter of episodes.
Yeah.
And then this villain ended up being worse than the previous villain. Even though this guy remembered his goal, he was shitty.
Yeah,
like, he couldn't fight for it. He created this game, even though it was just basically a reworking of Sword Art Online with a few extra tweaks to it. He couldn't fight in the game for anything. Got his the only reason why he could beat Kirito was because he was immortal. Once he removed that immortal factor, nope, gone. He was just destroyed. And then, now of course the whole BS with the bad guy from the first part giving him his access codes so Kirito can do whatever the hell he wants, like he's the game master himself. I thought that was a load of bullshit.
Heathcliff was awesome, though.
Mm-hmm. He was. But I still thought that move at the end of Alfenheim Online was bullshit. And then there was that whole emotional moment where he goes to Asuna's hospital room after she wakes up, and they have that emotional first kiss in the real world thing. And of course that whole thing about how, she was able to transfer over their daughter to Alfenheim Online and whatnot. Of course I also thought it was, even though it's, not fairy tale exclusive, I thought it was funny that the bad guy tried to push the name Titania on Asuna.
Uh-huh.
Every time I said it, I'm like, no, you're not Titania. Not even close. And now, ever since I watched read Fairy Tail, Titania can only be Earth. Even though she's not she should be written much better, she's still much better. Like, the best Titania out there, in my opinion. And that includes the friggin' Titania from Fire Emblem 9, which was stupid. But anyway, now overall, the first series I would have to say I thought it was a pretty good series. Now, for the second series, it improved so much, by far better than the first series, and we're approximately probably halfway through. If it's the same amount of episodes as Sword Art Online,
24.
the first series, it's 24 episodes this time around.
Yeah.
So then we're already halfway through, and it's already better by leaps and bounds. Between the mystery of the identity of who Death Gun is, and the whole trying to figure out the plot. And yes, Kirito wasn't amazing at the game right away. Now, one of the other things I liked was that even though I was kind of disappointed that it took Kirito until the 4th episode to finally enter the game, I still liked the whole fact that we got to learn a lot about this new character, Shinon. Shino. And hers, I thought that was really good. That, set up as to how she's going to be an important character. They made sure we felt for her before her and Kirito got partnered up in the game. Sort of. Now, honestly, the most confusing part of or should I say the most confusing decision, not only is the most confusing part, but the most confusing decision that the writer of the series made was giving Kirito in Gun Gale Online a character, an avatar that fucking looks like a chick.
Yeah, they explain
Makes no sense.
They explain it in a novel, but they don't explain it in the show, unfortunately.
Do you remember what the explanation was in the novel?
The explanation is, not that I read it, but the explanation that I've heard is that the longer that somebody's been in a nerve gear, the longer their hair ends up becoming.
Well, yeah, but we saw that. But how does that have to do with his avatar transferring?
That's literally just how it works with Gun Gale Online. It's really weird, but that's how they explain it. It's weird.
Yeah, but it's not just that, but his face and the whole body looked feminine.
Well, to be fair, if you put long hair on Kirito, he does still look feminine regardless.
Yeah, but I mean, it seemed, but they made his body even more feminine than usual. I mean, the only thing is that he didn't have boobs and he still had a dick. And literally, at first, he was kind of trying to tell all those guys who were perving on him, which was funny but stupid at the same time. And then when he meets up with Shino, it's like, oh, I gotta pretend I'm a chick, so that way this girl will help me because she thinks I'm a chick and I don't want to ruin it. And then, of course, he lets it go on for too far, and he ends up having to tell her who he really is in front while she's wearing nothing but virtual bra and panties, which doesn't make any sense why she would care if she sees her character naked, or somewhat naked. But it's anime, and she's a chick, so it doesn't matter.
It's a psychological thing, I guess.
Yeah, which is another issue altogether, since is it unacceptable to see them in their bra and panties, but it's okay in a bikini,
right?
Which covers pretty much just the same amount, if not less, depending on the type of bikini they're wearing. But that's Now, as for the whole thing with the BOB tournament, I liked, because I thought it was also kind of stupid that once again, despite the parameters of how you fight in the game, Kirito finds a way to fight with a sword. When they did the Alphaheim Online, they were like, oh, this is a magic game where you fight with magic. First thing he does is buys a sword for a weapon. I'm like, what? And then you have a gun-only MMO, and he fucking buys a lightsaber.
That's how he fights, man.
I mean, of course, it was, kind of cool. Alright, I'll talk about that. That was in this week's episode, so I'll talk about that when we talk about that episode. Anyway, it was kind of cool how it was like, okay, he didn't immediately master using a gun, and I still don't think he's completely mastered it,
Right.
even at this point. But I like but the fact of what they did with the VOB and dragging it out and the whole thing about the emotions behind it. I thought that was really done well.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, and I also like how at least at this point they just didn't throw another new female character in there that gets saved by Kirito and ends up falling in love with him. Like Asuna, his fucking cousin, which was funny because the entire time before she finds out that Kirito is her cousin, I thought she knew already, which is why I thought it was extra weird. Because I thought because they never really stated whether she knew or not. And then there was that whole, and then he was like, I gotta save Asuna. And I was like, wait a minute, you have to save Asuna? Wait, you're my cousin. Oh my god, I fucking was in love with you, and then I gave up those feelings because I can't be in love with my cousin, and then I fell in love with this other guy I met online who ends up being you anyway. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was kind of creepy. But I'm glad that they didn't immediately have Shino just fall in love with him.
It's a harem. That's what it is.
It's freaking harem. But who knows now with this previous episode.
Right.
So pretty much everything that's happened so far in SAO 2 definitely made it so far for everything that's happened so far, I'm going to give it an amazing. Whereas Sword Art Online, the first series, I only gave it a good. Now, for me to discuss in particularly this week's past episode, SAO 2 episode 13, Phantom Bullet.
Asuna-san.
Alright, stop with that bullshit. I'm actually kind of glad that she's not really that being utilized too much, because at this point she's become a damsel in distress. She's no longer the badass from the beginning of SAO. She's sort of still a badass even after they got married in the game, but then once you got to Alfenheim Online, she was a damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. So, now Death Gun continues his fight with Kirito, effectively greatly weakening him, because once again, even Death Gun finds a way to fight with a sword in this game. And it's not even a fucking lightsaber.
S-Stock, yeah.
It's what? Really? Now, while they're fighting, Kirito has a flashback to the meeting they had before the Laughing Coughing raid, and somehow, through BS, remembers the name of the guy from a screen. Because he had the same red eyes as the Death Gun had. So then he's like, oh, you're really Red Eyes XAXA, because I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. And you were the second in command of Laughing Coffin. So that right there, boom. So now they figured that part out. Now as he moves in for the final blow, Shinon creates the illusion of a bullet path using her experience in the game, just pure experience from the game alone, causing him to go into his invisibility cloak to avoid it. Now this distracts him long enough for Kirito to pull out his only gun that he has and start firing it at him, while stopping the cloaking process, rendering him vulnerable, while at the same time slicing him up with the sword. And then they kind of do this whole thing where it's oh, he's kind of dual wielding like he was in SAO, because he's using the power and strength that he had in SAO, and literally cuts him cleanly in half. And before his character dies, which isn't actually death in this time around, he reassures Kirito that the battle isn't over. And so this confuses him. Now, this leaves Kirito and Shinon with a conundrum. How are they going to end the tournament? Kirito's like, oh, well, let's fight it out. But Shinon's like, you're pretty much almost dead, and I want us to be a fair fight. So she decides to use a grenade for a double in-game suicide, so that way they become co-champions. But not before they reveal each other's real names and before Shinon reveals where she actually lives. Now, after logging off, Shino is visited by her good friend, the Stalker, who, was definitely a stalker. I mean, honestly, he was before you even see what he does, you knew he was a stalker. But you just thought he was a regular stalker. No, 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 no. You couldn't even see that he was going to be this level of stalker.
Mm-hmm.
Then, after making a couple of romantic advances, he pulls out the syringe and reveals, oh my god, the big reveal that he is the guy in the real world killing the people that Death Gun shoots at.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like... And then this is where things get really creepy. And after she breaks away from him and tries to get to the door, he proceeds to try and literally rape her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like... What? Like you're thinking, has Sword Art Online really gotten to that point where they utilize that? I mean, yes, they've incorporated at certain point ideas of of people actually dying and actually getting hurt from the games, but something on this level is like, it just seems like a higher, even worse level in terms of like adult content. But thankfully, Kirito comes in and at the last moment and pretty much kicks him in the face and holds him off while telling Shinon to leave, who immediately recognizes him as Kirito since she hasn't seen him in the real world, and runs. And that's where the episode ends, which pisses me off. And what pisses me off even more is that SAO2 doesn't do previews. They just say the name of the next episode.
Right.
Like, I'm not usually a guy who watches previews, because usually when I'm watching an anime that has previews, usually I'm marathoning it. So there's like I don't feel like wasting my time watching the previews when I'm going to watch the next episode immediately. But this case, I really wanted a preview and I didn't get it, and I hate it. So, but this episode was, despite the whole weirdness about how it ended, overall it was. I'd have to give it a. Once again, having to steal my boy, which not really my boy because I don't know him personally, but I'm gonna have to give it a yo.
A yo, huh?
Yeah, it was the fight was great, and like the twists and turns. Yes, there was a little bit of the whole BS about how Kirito was able to remember the guy's name, but at this point it doesn't even matter that he knows the guy's name that he used in Sword Art Online, because they got the guy's accomplice, who is, as revealed, is Death Gun's brother.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no need for him to have remembered the name anyway.
Exactly.
But I kind of sort of think that it's hinted at that Asuna remembered the guy before Kirito did.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then obviously one thing I did forget to mention is that before they logged out or did the double suicide, their fears were confirmed, and another player off screen was killed by Death Gun.
Right.
Which is sad, but you can't really feel for a guy you never saw die.
Yeah. True.
But now, like, obviously in the next episode, this stalker kid is going to get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me think, where do they go from here? Because, I mean, I know there's supposed to be another type of sort of MMO type of thing they do after this, where it's supposed to be like like a realistic simulation of the real world or something. Almost, I mean, and it's supposed to be like the most realistic version of the real world. But, I mean, in terms of like, since I didn't read the light novels, I don't know like where they can go with it. And if there's not any more content in Gun Gale Online, which I don't think there is, because they took care of the villain.
Right.
So we'll probably get one more episode of Gun Gale Online in the form of episode 14, and then maybe, I don't know what else they need to do in terms of what stories a part of this other arc that was done in the light novels.
Right.
So, I mean, honestly, I no matter how much you try to explain it, I'm still gonna get pissed, I'm still gonna be like, all like stupid. I'm still gonna be bringing up the whole issue about friggin' Kirito's avatar looking like a chick. Because honestly, if you're gonna make it look at a chick, you might as well go all the way if you want to go for the laughs. I mean, come
Okay.
on. I mean, I would have like at first when I saw it, I was like, maybe they did that. The guy who commissioned him for the job did it on purpose, so that way no one would recognize him, sort of. But I'm like, really? If you're gonna make him look like a girl, at least it's an avatar, so it's not like they have to actually make him one.
Right.
So it's like, why not create the funny situation? Because amongst all that action, they could have at least come up with a few funny situations in that respect, more so than what they already did with the confusion. But it's whatever. It still was. I mean, like I said, it was It was a very amazing good series so
Okay.
far, and it's definitely one that, and unfortunately, our mutual friend who watched Sword Art Online isn't going to be watching Sword Art Online 2 because for the sole reason that it's not, well, for two reasons. One, it's not English dubbed, and two, he believes that when it does get English dubbed, it's going to be done by a different voice act. Like they're going to cast different people. Apparently, they said that they're going to cast different. Apparently, going to cast different people for the characters. So he's like, oh, I'm not, I'm not going to watch it. I'm like, really, dude, you're missing out on the best part of the series. And he even says it might be outbeat his. He says it might even be outbeat his favorite, and he only saw the first series. And you know what his favorite is.
Yeah.
And you know which person I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Link.
Mhm.
I'm talking about Link here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, haven't said anything to him yet because I haven't talked to him since I haven't since before I even started SAO. So I haven't had a chance to talk to him, but I mention it to him. That I
Okay.
saw. But the fact of the matter is that I cannot believe he's giving it such a high ranking when he hasn't even seen SAO 2 yet. Now, once SAO 2's done, like I'm gonna wait for SAO 2 done before I decide to actually rank SAO because unlike other animes, like for instance with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, this is actually a continuation of the story.
Mhm.
So the SAO and SAO 2 are I'm gonna count as one series because it is one series, as opposed to with Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, it was the first time they told the story and they had to veer off because of the manga, them catching up to the manga, and then the second time actually telling the story as it happened in the manga.
Uh-huh.
But SAO 2 is, just telling the whole story
Mhm.
from beginning. It's just that SAO 1 was like what? I think like 3 years ago was when it finished. I
Yeah,
think.
something like that.
So
2012, I think.
2011, 2012, something like that. And so, I'm guessing they chose to like end it at that point instead of trying to come up with their own storyline as to what was going to happen next. I don't
Mhm.
know, or I don't know what the case was, why they stopped. But then they picked it up again and they called it SAO 2. Now, and of course, Link had his BS theories about how he heard that it was supposedly said that it was a reboot, and he said, "Oh, it's probably a sequel." I'm like, "No, it's not a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's a continuation."
Right.
So, but so I'm just looking forward to see where they go from here.
Same.
Okay. So, for Akame ga Kuru, episode 13, this episode mostly focuses on the new danger beasts, which are apparently uh, some type of human that was transformed into a danger beast, either by a tegu or Dr. Stylish. And so the episode opens up by the Danger Beast killing, two random people. And then, we cut to the opening, and then, of course, we see Estes and the Jaegers take on the responsibility of taking them out. And, of course, the minister contracts Estes to take a couple alive for experimentation, and she does so with ice. And then, of course, we see a bit of Tatsumi training with Susanoo, and he didn't really give Tatsumi any real advice, which is, weird, but whatever. And they find out about the Danger Beasts, and, now they're going to take out some too. And the episode kind of ends off with Lubbock and Tatsumi going after some Danger Beasts together, when we get Lubbock's backstory of how he joined the Imperial Army and Night Raid, essentially, and it was because, he's in love with Najenda. And lastly, Tatsumi goes up top, and then Estes falls from the sky thinking it's an enemy, and takes out all the Danger Beasts in the area to protect Tatsumi. And that's the episode. So, into kind of details, it's pretty funny how Estes finds him again. It's like, oh shit. And she just fucking drops and like a meteor from the sky. And Tatsumi, of course, is like, oh shit. I couldn't have predicted that she, of all people, would just fall from the sky. It's just fucking coincidence. And of course, this is their reunion, and, anime only watchers, you'll see, how this plays out next week. And, I guess on to Lubbock's backstory, or Robic, however, you pronounce it. He, he was a spoiled brat as a kid, but then, he became unspoiled, I guess, when he went after an agenda and joined the army. And it's not very strong of a backstory, but I'll tell you, at least his character gets strengthened as the series goes on, as far as his that at however long he has to live. I'm not going to say whether he lives, whether he dies, when, and or if. Manga readers, you guys know what's up, but for anime only watchers, don't want to spoil whether he's alive or dead. But for at least the screen time that he has, whether he's alive or dead, he strengthens a bit, and he actually is one of my favorite characters in the series. And that's about it, really, for the chapter. Although I'll mention at least Bowles, or Boars, his wife and child make an appearance, and it's interesting how they see past his mask and what he's done in the past, which he reveals in this episode that he incinerated a lot of people, whether they were, diseased or, claiming themselves to be innocent or whatever. And so he states again that he's not a very nice person, even though we know that's not exactly true, because he might be a hardened killer, but it doesn't mean he's not nice, really. That's just there's a difference between attitude and, overall, I guess, hardening. I'm not sure how to word that, really. But there is, a concrete difference. So that's the episode. It was pretty simple. I liked it. Decent to good episode. And that's about it, probably, for the anime section this week, because we don't have JoJo until January, I believe. And no more Hunter x Hunter. And shit, man. It's losing all the anime.